After winning the NBA Finals over the Kings for the first time in this series, it was time for the Season 3 offseason to gear up to try to repeat as champs in Season 4. We would start with staff resignings where we would extend Scott Siles a 2-year offer, and same with our assistant coach Jim Boylan as we'd extend him another 2 years as well. We had 2 pending team offers in Carlos Arroyo and Larry Sanders as we would happily accept Larry Sanders, and most player and team deals were picked up minus Monte Ellis, who was set to be a free agent this offseason, as well as Andre Iguodala, who was looking like he was leaving Philadelphia. The only expiring contract we needed to resign this offseason was Brandon Jennings, but he unfortunately wanted to test the free agent market where we would have to sign him back hopefully. Before that though, it was time for the 2013 NBA Draft, where we only had a single second-round pick and would take Vlado Olic, a center out of Serbia. It was now time for free agency, and we would offer a $106 million 6-year deal for Brandon Jennings, and we needed a shooting guard to come off the bench for us as well, so we would offer a $20 million 3-year deal to Wayne Ellington. Thankfully, both of those players would sign with us, and we had locked up Brandon Jennings for the foreseeable future, but that deal would not leave us enough money to go after Andre Iguodala, who I thought possibly we could go after. With training camps left, we would send Dante Wooden to perimeter shooting, Andrew Bogut would go to big man defense, Lonnie Roberts would go to a rebounding camp, and Brandon Jennings would get sent to the combo guard camp. After the offseason, this is what our lineup was looking like, and I think it was a little bit improved over last season's, but somehow despite that, we were only ranked 19th in the power rankings headed into this next season. It was time for our very first game in season number 4, and it was a matchup that many were predicting to be the NBA Finals this season. The Thunder were once again one of the top teams in the West with Westbrook, Durant, and Melo all on the team, and it was definitely one of the most formidable big threes in the league currently. Carmelo would get the first points on the night for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and after that 3 from Lonnie Roberts, he would respond with one of his own. We'd been trading leads back and forth throughout the entire first quarter as Anthony was on fire for the Thunder, but it would be Durant knocking down this 3 with under 40 seconds to go in the first. With Brandon Jennings looking to try to tie this game up a foot on the line, that would be a 2, and we would head to the second quarter with it tied 20 apiece, and Dante Wooden would get things started for us. We hadn't heard his name called so far a lot in the first quarter tonight, but I was hoping Dante Wooden could heat up from us from deep and try to knock down some more 3-pointers. Speaking of 3, we would be up by 3 with one last shot here from Carmelo, and with that not hitting, we would head into halftime with a 3-point lead. That definitely was not a safe lead against this team though, as on the fast break, it would be James Harden who would draw the foul and one, and he would tie this game up at 33 apiece. Normally we're used to seeing the opposite here, as it would be Dante Wooden passing to Brandon Jennings who would knock down this 3-pointer, and that's 16 points already for the point guard tonight as he's coming off of his huge contract extension, so it's looking like it was definitely a worthy investment for the Bucks this offseason. Speaking of Jennings, he's bringing it up again for Milwaukee here, pulling up, no one in front of him, and he would help give the Bucks a 5-point lead headed into the fourth. Now it was the backup point guard, sophomore Edward Marsh, who would get things started from deep, and the Bucks weren't only needing to shoot from beyond the 3-point line to find 3 points in a possession. Brandon Jennings was on fire here in the second half tonight, but Carmelo Anthony had not slowed down a single bit since tip-off for the Thunder. It was only an 8-point game with less than a minute to go, and he would knock down a mid-range jumper, but once again, the Thunder defense just couldn't stop Brandon Jennings. As up by 8 with less than 5 seconds to go, the Thunder would not be able to come back in this one to open up the season, and the Bucks would start out with a dominant win over the Thunder on the road, with Brandon Jennings' first game off of his contract extension being a 29.4 assist game for the point guard. Our next game was at home for the first time this season, and we were taking on once again one of the top teams in the Western Conference in the Timberwolves. We would look to get things started with our pick and roll offense and would do just that, but the Timberwolves had one of the top fast break offenses in the league last season. If we wanted to win this game tonight, we would have to try to slow them down in transition the best we could, but we weren't off to the best start of that as we were down 10-4, but finally Dante Wooden would knock down a 3 for us. Only down by 1 now, we would go right back to our third-year shooting guard who would knock down another one, and it looked like it would be tied headed into the second quarter, but Wesley Johnson would knock this down from deep, and we were now down by 3 points in counting here in the second quarter. We were trying to match Minnesota's tempo on the offensive side of things as we were finding wide open threes, finally tying the game up at 25 apiece, and would go right back to Lonnie Roberts for another one. Up by 2 for the first time in a while, we had a chance to make it 4 right before halftime as we'd hold on to a 31-27 lead headed into the second half. Minnesota had started to clamp down our pick and roll offense near the end of the first half, but still could not stop Andrew Bogut on the glass. And even though we had started to slow them down in transition, we still hadn't been able to stop giving up wide open threes. Up by 2, we would hit one of our own right back at them, and we had seen our lead grow to 9 points over the Timberwolves right before the end of the third. With only 3 seconds left, I didn't think we'd manage to get any more points, but Brandon Jennings would knock this down at the buzzer, and for the first time tonight, we held a double-digit lead over the Timberwolves. That was at least until Pat Mullins started going off in the fourth quarter tonight, as he would hit back-to-back threes for the Timberwolves, getting it down to a 6-point lead. Under a minute and a half to go now in the game, and Lonnie Roberts with the play of the season so far. An absolute poster on Brook Lopez to get it back up to a 10-point lead, but Pat Mullins just could not miss from deep here in the fourth quarter tonight. Despite his great shooting, it would not be enough to overcome the deficit here in the fourth, as we'd pick up the win at home thanks to another almost double-double performance from Brandon Jennings tonight. We would go on a 5-game winning streak to start the season, but would lose our first game to the Jazz. And unfortunately in that loss, Wayne Ellington would tear his MCL. With the shooting guard we just acquired in the offseason being out for the season, Carlos Delfino would get extra minutes and step up to play the shooting guard role off the bench, as we got ready to face the Lakers back here at home in Milwaukee. The start of the season for the Lakers was not going as well as they had hoped in the preseason. Even though it was only 1 month into the season, they were currently only sitting middle of the pack in the Western Conference. And headed into the year, they were also picked as one of the 3 favorites to win the Western Conference. That didn't mean they weren't going to be a tough team though, as they were keeping it close here in the first quarter, and we would head to the second with only a 2-point lead over them that we were trying to extend. With the injury to Wayne Ellington setting him out for the season, second-year small forward Murray Everett was going to have to step up for us in his absence, along with his counterpart Carlos Delfino, who were both stepping up for us in this game. We didn't have a true 2-guard on the roster other than Wayne Ellington and Dante Wooden, so since his shooting improved in the offseason, we'd be running lots of sets with Brandon Jennings at the 2 as well. This new lineup was looking like it was paying off for us here in the first half, and I don't think the second half could have got off to a better start for us. The Lakers were doing their best to keep themselves in the game though, as they got it back under 10 points and Kobe would get it to 6. This is when though our offense really started to catch on fire from beyond the arc tonight. Lonnie Roberts would kick it off with that 3-pointer, and then it would be Dante Wooden in the right corner who would get the lucky bounce. And even though LA was still staying in this game, we would keep knocking down these threes. With less than a minute to go and down 15, there wasn't much left that the Lakers could do to try to win this game, as Delonte West would knock down one last shot for the Lakers here, but it would not be enough, as we'd hold off this Western Conference team with a 16-point victory, and our strong start to the season here would continue. Nearing the end of the first month, we were currently sitting at 8-3, with Andrew Bogut leading us in points per game and rebounds per game, averaging almost a double-double. It was no surprise Brandon Jennings was leading us in assists, averaging almost a double-double as well. But with 1 week to go in November, we would find that Murray Everett would be injured with an inflamed elbow. Thankfully, he would be able to play through that injury for us, and he would be in the lineup tonight as we got ready for a huge rematch, going up against the Sacramento Kings for the first time since we last played them in the NBA Finals last year. Giving up an offensive rebound on a free throw for 2 points is not how we wanted to start, but we would end up going to our own big man, Andrew Bogut, who would get to the free throw line and would tie this game up for us to start early on. The Kings seem to have been on a bit of a slump to the start of this season since their NBA Finals appearance, as even though the season had only been 1 month in so far, the team that represented the Western Conference in the Finals last season found themselves outside the top 8. There's still a long way to go in the season, but if the playoffs started today, they wouldn't be in it, and so far throughout this first quarter, they definitely seemed like an easier matchup this year. That didn't mean we could take them any lighter, because we knew how easily their offense could get going, as right before the end of the first half, the Kings would finally get this down to only a 10-point deficit against us. That was at least until Brandon Jennings would be left wide open for a last-second 3. Halfway through the third quarter, Aaron Brooks would get this under a 10-point deficit for the Kings, but that would be the last time they would see our lead under 10 points. Dante Wooden would hit this 3 over a double team right before the end of the third, and there was absolutely nothing the Kings could do to come back in this game in the fourth quarter, as this is exactly how we wanted this rematch against our NBA Finals opponent to go, picking up the 11-point victory over them on the road with another huge double-double performance from Brandon Jennings, who was named last year's Finals MVP. There was this headline that picked up my attention at the end of the month though, as it looked like the New Orleans Hornets were looking looking to shop Wesley Matthews. We needed a shooting guard to fill in for Wayne Ellington, who was injured and out the rest of the season, but unfortunately this was the only deal that could get him to the team, and we were not going to trade Lonnie Roberts. Thankfully though, Murray Everett would fully recover from his injury at the end of November, and headed into December, the Bucks were sitting at 11-4, only half a game behind the New York Knicks, who we would be taking on for the first time this season at the end of December, which will be next episode.